Hello, everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. As always, we hope that you will enjoy this legal education content, and today might be the day I earn your subscription. For today's story, we're dealing with an article regarding Fairfax County in Virginia, my former home. I used to live in Fairfax County, and how they are teaching critical race theory in the classroom. So we're going to learn a little bit about critical race theory, which, of course, I've been reliably informed is actually not a thing at all. So we're going to learn a little bit about it and how they're teaching it in Fairfax. Let's get started with this. So Fairfax apparently has sent educators a PowerPoint on how to implement critical race theory in the classroom. Everything is better with PowerPoint, am I right? And then we see a bunch of smiling kids, which, A Virginia public school district sent a PowerPoint to teachers explaining how to explicitly implement critical race theory in the classroom. This is important for some reason. It's important that we indoctrinate our children into the critical race theory. It is important that we inform them that some races are inherently advantaged over other races. And some races are inherently racist, irredeemably so. And that America is and always has been formed on racism, and that racism today is worse than it ever has been, which seems like a strange proposition given some of America's history. But then again, I'm white, so what does my opinion matter? Fairfax County Public School District sent out a resource intended to be a teacher-facing item which defined critical race theory, among other progressive ideologies, and explained how to implement the ideologies in the classroom. Examples include culturally relevant pedagogy, which is just a word for teaching. So culturally relevant teaching, okay. Institutional/systemic racism, which, if it is a thing, if institutional and systemic racism is a thing, one of those institutions and systems might, for example, be, I don't know, public education, perhaps. I'm just saying, if institutional and systemic racism is a thing, it must mean that this system is racist inherently, right? That must be what that means. So why, if your system is racist, do you have any authority on how to teach, how to cure that racism? I don't know. Maybe you should fix your own racism first. But no, you literally want to teach the children about how to identify the racism that you yourself apparently have. So, I don't know how that's supposed to work. Anti-racism education, which has a very different meaning than you might think. Anti-racism education means let's teach people how the whites are responsible for all the bad, and how other races are inherently inferior and disadvantaged and can't make it because of the whites, which seems pretty racist. You have a tough time sometimes telling the left progressives apart from the KKK, because they both say things like the black races, have inherent irredeemable disadvantages, and whites are inherently better or something. So I don't know how you're supposed to tell the difference between the progressives and the KKK anymore, but okay. The district defined critical race theory as an interpretive framework that examines the appearance of race and racism across dominant cultural modes of expression. That sounds very sort of loose and undefined and very open, which I'm assuming is the intent. In adopting this approach, critical race theory scholars attempt to understand how victims of systemic racism are affected by cultural perceptions of race, and how they're able to represent themselves to counter prejudice, which I didn't know that was a problem. I didn't know that members of different races had any problems in representing themselves. I mean, it seems to me, it seems to me that people of all races are able to represent themselves perfectly adequately. I've seen lots of people of lots of races have involved in all kinds of aspects of culture. Seems like they're doing a fine job. Okay. And last time I checked, there were any number of student organizations and special interest groups devoted to this to help them represent themselves. So I didn't know this was a problem. Okay. Under the application/example portion of the slide, educators were told that critical race theory is a helpful tool for analyzing issues such as school funding, segregation, language policies, I don't even know what that means, discipline policies, curriculum, pedagogy, assessment, and accountability policies, which I assume means that we got to have different standards or different policies based on race, right? If it's critical race theory and we're talking about discipline policies, then presumably we should have different policies based on race for discipline. So we literally want to treat different people of different races differently when it comes to discipline based specifically on their race. So yeah, that is the end of this article. It doesn't surprise me in any way that Fairfax County is doing this. Fairfax County is pretty blue. It's right next to DC. So it's basically effectively a suburb of DC, to be quite fair. And yeah, the fact that Fairfax County is doing this surprises me in no way with the teaching of the critical race theory. Now, I did see recently that one of the members of the boards of directors strongly implied that parents who don't like critical race theory should just, die. So there's that. So the teaching of these racism will continue in Fairfax County, and at least for the moment, that brings us to the end of the discussion of this case. Thank you so much for being part of the Uncivil Law family. If you enjoyed this legal education content, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. We appreciate your continuing support. Until later, my friends, cheers and goodbye. Thank you so much for being part of the Uncivil Law family. If you enjoyed this legal education content, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. We appreciate your continuing support. Until later, my friends, cheers and goodbye.